Hello everyone, let's talk about parental sponsorship in 2020. First of all, the elephant in the room. Will there be any opportunities for you to sponsor your parents or grandparents to Canada in year 2020? Let me read the official announcement by the Government of Canada. The Government of Canada on March 27th, 2020 published this announcement, and it is modified in April, and to be specific, on April the 3rd. It reads, due to the current focus on responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada IRCC will delay the opening of the 2020 Parents and Grandparents PGB program to accepting new applicants. The launch of the annual call for expressions of interest to apply was anticipated in the coming weeks. Given the present circumstances, however, we are prioritizing our efforts to contribute to the whole of government response to the pandemic. It is important to note that the temporary deferral of the launch of 2020 call for applications is not expected to impact when parents and grandparents will arrive in our country, and that processing of these applications continues. The Government of Canada remains strongly committed to family reunification, and IRCC is committed to opening the program as soon as possible. Details of the opening of the PGB program will be posted online and shared via social media once they are available. Simply put, it means that it is very unlikely there will be any opening of accepting parental sponsorship applications in 2020. We might see some movements in terms of accepting applications around October or November, or the earliest around September, but for now it is not clear that this will gonna happen. So let's say you want to sponsor your parents to Canada. What is involved in this process? You need to know that in any sponsorship application, we have a sponsor and an applicant. The sponsor is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada, and the applicant is the person who wants to immigrate to Canada. Also, on top of the applicant, we usually have family members of the applicant or dependent family members of the applicant. Let's explain each of these groups separately. The first group is the sponsor or sponsors. In terms of parental sponsorship, obviously we are looking at a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada who wants to sponsor either his parents or her parents or his or her grandparents to Canada. This person needs to be 18 years old. This is the minimum age for sponsoring your parents or grandparents to Canada. On top of the age limit, we also have some other expectations from the Canadian government. Those expectations are defined under Section 130 to 134 of the immigration regulations. Some of the expectations of the government from the sponsor, other than being a permanent resident of Canada or citizen of Canada and being at least 18 years old, are these ones. So the sponsor needs to live in Canada, not outside Canada. The sponsor must sign an undertaking pledge for 20 years. This means that when their parents become permanent residents of Canada, for the first 20 years when they are inside Canada, the financial support for the parents or grandparents is the main priority for this person, is actually the responsibility of this person. This means that parents or grandparents are not allowed to use some services such as social welfare. If they decide to do so, then this is the responsibility of the sponsor to pay the government back. Also, the sponsor cannot be subject to a removal order from Canada. That sponsor at the time of sponsorship is not in a reformatory, prison, jail, or penitentiary. The sponsor has not been convicted of an offense of the violent or sexual nature toward people close to the sponsor. The sponsor is not an undischarged bankrupt, and the sponsor does not owe money to the federal government of Canada. And also, the sponsor has filed their taxes in Canada, and their income on notice of assessment in the last 3 consecutive years is at least 30% above the poverty line, or basically above LICO. If you want to know more about the minimum necessary income for sponsors, I have actually a link down below that you can click on that link and see the table of minimum necessary income for sponsoring your parents and grandparents. As I mentioned, in the sponsorship application, we have a sponsor. We also have an applicant. And that applicant, or the principal applicant, is somebody who wants to immigrate to Canada. In this case, we are looking at mostly your father or mother, or your grandfather or your grandmother. If we look at the conditions associated with the parents, I would say it is mostly about them not being inadmissible to Canada. So more than anything else, the government looks into inadmissibility issues regarding the principal applicant. For example, are they inadmissible because of security reasons, because of criminality, organized criminality, human rights violations, medical issues, those kind of things. And so you need to be very careful to make sure that your parents or grandparents are not inadmissible to Canada. If there are some issues in terms of inadmissibility to Canada, it is in your best interest to try to resolve them before submitting the application, or try to convince the officer they do not apply to your parents or grandparents at the time of application, or find alternative routes like humanitarian and compassionate considerations, TRP, or other potential options for your parents or grandparents. As I mentioned, we have the sponsor, who is a permanent resident of Canada or citizen of Canada. We have the principal applicant. But what about family members? For example, when you sponsor your parents to Canada, in fact, you want both of your parents, if both of them are alive, and you want to sponsor them to come to Canada. So usually you pick one of them to the principal applicant, and the other one is considered the accompanying spouse or accompanying common law partner. Also, if your parents or grandparents, they have children of their own, those children are under 22 years old and they are single, or if they are more than 22 years old, they are financially dependent to your parents because of significant medical issues or mental health issues. In those situations, those people, which usually it means they are your brothers or sisters, they also become dependent family members and you can sponsor them. However, keep that in mind, this will affect your minimum necessary income. So let's say your family in Canada is 3 people, and then your parents' family is another 3 people. You need to calculate the minimum necessary income for 6 people. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. If you're watching this on Instagram, please follow us, like the video, and share it with your friends. Please stay tuned with us, and I promise you that I will publish more videos regarding immigration to Canada. My name is Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I teach immigration consulting at Ashton College. I'm the author of the bestseller book about immigration to Canada called 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada. Thank you for watching this video.